Hey everyone, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the interaction of your kids and technology, and specifically your ability to get in contact with your kids at all time and the dangers that that might impose. Last week I talked about the difference between doing things that are scary and that are dangerous, or letting your kids do things that are scary versus dangerous, and what that really means. And I want to encourage you to think back to your childhood. I was born in 1980. I grew up, I'm a in-between millennial and a Gen Xer, depending on, I'm probably an elder millennial. I grew up and I didn't have technology till I was about 15 or 16. And I survived, I made it. But the new technology, some of it is amazing, but some of it, I feel like it's inducing some anxiety. We know that social media is pretty much bad for our the young minds, that the anxiety is up, depression is up, teen suicide is up, all these things are up. And I want to give you permission to let your kids go out into the world without tracking them. So we're going to talk about, child tracking, which is really a crazy thing to think about that. This came about, I recently went to a balloon festival. So it's really cool. They launched these hot air balloons. And it was a couple, 2 or 3 different families, and we were all leaving. We're walking out, and a friend of mine, a girl I grew up with, her son, who is, he's in high school, but he's 18 years old. And she asked them, they're all leaving. He had parked somewhere else. So she's walking. She said, "Do you have your phone?" He said, "No, it's not charged. I left it in the car. It's dead." She said, "You need to charge your phone. As soon as you get in your car, charge your phone. So I just want you to charge your phone." And now this kid, he's probably going to go play college football. He's strong. He's actually a literal adult. And I told her, I said her name. I'm like, "Do you remember when we were kids?" She's like, "I know." I'm like, "When we were 16, we just left. And our parents had no idea." She goes, "I know. I used to tell them that I was in, like Oakland County, which is it's a nice area, not much crime." She would go to Flint to see her boyfriend, which is now her husband. And her parents had no idea. She goes, "I know." I'm like, "He's going to be okay." She goes, "I know. I just worry." And man, that's great that you have a parent. As a parent, that you have concern enough for your child that you worry for them. Because some kids don't have that. Some parents don't care at all. They're terrible parents. They don't care where their kids are. There's no input at all. And the kids are raising themselves. And I'm not for that at all. I think you should love your kids, have input on your kids. But I do think there's danger in consistently monitoring every action they take. I was talking to a buddy of mine. His kids are in college. And he was talking about his wife gets on her phone and goes, "Oh, it looks like he's in class today. Oh, what's it? It's a Friday. Where's he at? He should be there." And they literally live on the other side of the state. They're in college and they're tracking them. And I think it's amazing. I love the fact that I can know where my son is, but I've made it a point that if we've told him you need to be home by 10 o'clock, I'm not going to look and see where he is until he comes back. And even if I do, say he's late, I'm not going to come back and go, "Why were you here?" I want to have a conversation with him that said, "Hey, what was going on? Where were you?" Even if I already know the answer, right? I want him to have the confidence that he is actually out in this world, experiencing the world, interacting with the world, and making his own decisions without this little voice in his head. It's like, no matter what I do, my parents are going to know where I'm at. I'm going to be okay. I don't want him to know that. I want him to know that the decision he makes can have really big consequences, and I'm not just going to rush in because I can track him and know exactly where he's at. Give your kids that independence. Give your kids that ability to just be grown up, if you will. And it's hard. We're just now experimenting in this. He can drive. My son can drive. My daughter's just now doing things like babysitting and being off on her own. We're leaving the house and they're home alone. And there is a rising, almost obsession with parents with the ability to track and the ability to communicate. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the rise of even like kindergartners and first graders that have smartwatches, and how their parents will text them in the middle of class. "Is everything okay? How are you doing?" And I understand where that's coming from. You want to know, but let your kid get away from you. If there's a problem, he's with an adult that you have entrusted their life with. It's their teacher. If you don't trust their teacher, take your kids out of the school and homeschool. But if you feel like you can trust the administration, Trust the teacher. Trust that if something bad happens, they're going to call you. Don't email your kid in the middle of the day. Don't let them email you. Mom, I just failed my test. Let them deal with that. Let them go through these emotions. Technology can be great. If it was midnight and I couldn't find, my son wasn't home, he's supposed to be home at 10, I am tracking him. I'm calling him. We're going to find out where this kid is, right? Because it's outside of the norm. But when it's inside the norm, man, let them alone. Let them wander. You know, as a probably a 12-year-old, I remember I rode my bike from one buddy's house, probably about 4 miles to another buddy's house. It was funny. We didn't even call him to say, hey, are you home? When we got there, he wasn't home. So we just turned around and rode another 4 miles back. And it's the city I work in. And that's it. Part of it is really dangerous. Like where I work yesterday, we had a guy shot in the chest. Now, you know, there's some better neighborhoods and better neighborhoods and worse neighborhoods. This was in a worse neighborhood where the guy got shot, but that's the place I work. And as a 13-year-old, I'm riding my bike around, and I was okay, right? Because now that, like, looking back, my parents might say that was pretty scary, but in reality, it wasn't dangerous. No one's messing with a couple kids riding their bike. You know, it just like people worried about getting kidnapped. In reality, kids don't get kidnapped by complete strangers. Now, does it happen? Absolutely. But it's like saying, you know, it's like, I'm going to go and I need to make some money. I'm going to invest, and I'm going to invest in the lottery. Now, I know statistically I could win, but it's a very, very poor investment, right? If I was going to take my entire paycheck and just every week say, I'm playing the lottery till I hit it big, very poor investment because the odds just aren't there. If you're living your life worried about your kid getting kidnapped by a complete stranger, very poor investment of your worry, of your time, of your effort, and even putting that in your kid's head, like, hey, at any moment, a stranger could jump out and grab you. Statistically, it just doesn't happen. And I know you're going to have a story in the news that you heard, and that is real, but to worry about that, to worry about something like that, and have it affect so your kids don't feel independent, there is a huge, huge portion of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who are just failing to launch at all. They're graduating, they're working minimum amount of time, they're sitting home on their computer, immersed into an online world that just doesn't go anywhere, and they're happy to do it. Why? I feel like, and again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a researcher, I feel like it's because they don't feel comfortable going out in the world because their entire life has been monitored, they've been controlled by their parents. Don't be that. Let your kids be a little dangerous. Let them walk around the block. You know, if you're really worried, you still can track them, but don't tell them you're tracking them. Let them think that they were just out and about like we used to do when we were kids. That is a good thing. Go back to what is scary and what is dangerous. If it's not dangerous, let your kids do scary things. Let your kids camp out in a tent in the backyard by themselves. I mean, what are the odds that something bad could happen? And play the odds. The odds are really, really good. There's a book called Free Range Kids, and I meant to look up the actual number, but if you wanted to guarantee your kids were going to get kidnapped, you'd have to leave them outside for like 730,000 days just to guarantee that the odds stack up and they'd actually get kidnapped. Don't let your kids grow up thinking that you have control over every part of their life, because then they don't grow up. And that, I think, as a parent, is something we really want. I got some great advice when I was younger from a fireman friend of mine. He said, Danny, you don't own your kids. You get 18 years to help them, to guide them, direct them, but they're not yours. They are themselves. And they're going to go do what they want to do when they want to do it. And we can only help to provide a good atmosphere for them, provide a healthy atmosphere, provide the things they need to grow and thrive. But ultimately, they're not yours. You don't own them, and they're going to go out and do into this world. So I ask you, what kind of world do you want them to go out into? What kind of mentality do you want them to have? Do you want them to have that courage to go, I got this. I can handle this. No problem. This is good. Or do you want them, like, every now and then we get a car accident, whether it be a kid, he gets in a car accident, and hey, do you want to go to the hospital? He's like, I don't know. I got to ask my parents. This is like a 25-year-old has to call home a dude, 25 years old. Let me call my mom. You can decide. So the only way that happens, though, is if you let your kids gradually make decisions. I want to do this. I want to stay out. I want to take this job. I want to take that job. And yeah, I just think we need to let them go do scary things, not dangerous things, scary things. And one of the things that we can do as parents is stop tracking your kids. Don't let them know that you can know exactly where they're at, because then they don't develop that sense of security, the independence. And we really want that. I want a strong, independent, kids. I want all 3 of them just to be able to go in the world and take over and not have any issues. And I think our generation was pretty good at that, because there was no way for our parents to track us, and they just trusted that things would work out. And for the most part, they did. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, I'd love a review. I'm working on getting my reviews up. We're over 15,000 downloads. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And as always, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast, and I will talk to you later.